everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, back in the saddle today. There was some scheduling conflicts on Wednesday. No, it wasn't because of the election. It was because of, let's be frank, I went to Nashville, okay? Me and my sister went to the Billie Eilish concert, because Billie, my sister's a big-time Billie Eilish fan, on Wednesday. Billie, shout out to you. You put on a fantastic show. There's no question about that, and there's a reason that she is one of the most talented artists in the world. But that's why I wasn't here on Wednesday. But I'm back today, and you better believe we're about to get some election reaction. Donald Trump reelected. He's the first non-consecutive term president since Grover Cleveland a little over 100 years ago. Yeah, not a little over, I guess a lot over. Point is, second one to ever do it. Get into that in literally just a second. Also, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, 35-34 win. What was a Thursday night classic in Baltimore last night? It was a fantastic game. By the day, by the game, by the hour, there's more and more and more pressure on this particular player, who I love, by the way. Big Lamar Jackson fan here. But, man, that pressure is ratcheting it up by the day. I'll explain why later on today's show. The Vol View, Tennessee's got a big game this week. Homecoming. They're going to wear the Pat Summitt Blues in terms of not their uniforms, but socks, armbands, all those things. Get into that. They got a homecoming game against Mississippi State ahead of their big game, season-defining game potentially next week against the Georgia Bulldogs. Get into that later in the show. And, of course, predictions for Week 10's NFL action. I'm 1-0 against the spread, 1-0 total. It's those that follow me on Instagram, because I didn't get a chance to predict on the show Wednesday because there was no show on Wednesday. I picked the Ravens to win, but the Bengals to cover plus 6.5. Got both of those right. So I've got, if I were a Bettin Man, my 3 if I were a Bettin Man games, trying to recover after a rough week, Week 9. Bryce's Bleak bet, and of course, upset of the week. Very excited to get into all of those things. But of course, we had an election on Tuesday night. Let me take a drink of water before we get rolling, because I want to be succinct. I want to be locked in for this. So let's get started. But first, America decided on Tuesday night that Donald Trump had become the 47th president of the United States. He returns to the White House after his first term between 2017 and 2021 as the 45th president. He returns to the White House as the first non-consecutive term president since Grover Cleveland back in 1884 and 1892. So why did this happen? What led Americans to vote for Trump back in the White House again, to vote against Kamala Harris? Well, there's a number of factors. So what I find really interesting about this entire process is, I said coming into this election, going back to, as I said on my show Monday, I've said it for 2 years. I said it going back in June when Trump became the first president in history to become a convicted felon. Now he's the only person to enter the White House as commander-in-chief as a convicted felon. I said it then, said it even, I guess, as recently as Monday, that I thought if voter turnout was high, notice I said that, Donald Trump returning to the White House was an impossibility. Now, dead wrong in the election. I was way off. I thought Kamala would take 6 of the 7 swing states. She went over. Donald Trump took all 7. Took the blue wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, took Georgia and North Carolina, took Nevada and Arizona. Clean sweep across the board. And as an added bonus for the Republicans, they won the popular vote. As we say here today, they got a 4. They're not totally done counting the votes, but as we say here today, Trump's got about a 4 million vote lead ahead of Kamala Harris, which, as a guy who is not a fan of the Electoral College, I'll say that in the front end at all. Maybe this can convince Republicans. Got to get on my side on this. Whatever. We can debate that another day. James Carville was a famous strategist with Bill Clinton. Very, very well-known Democrat, very powerful Democrat back in the day, back in the 1990s. And when Republicans were in a stretch where they would win 3 consecutive presidential elections, Ronald Reagan back-to-back in 80 and 84, George H.W. Bush in 1988, you had a Bill Clinton come around in 1992, who's kind of at that point somewhat of a political outsider. Sure, he was governor of Arkansas. Sure, he'd had a history in politics prior to becoming president sworn in 1993. But they were able to tap into something that voters, at the end of the day, we saw yesterday, and we saw Tuesday. It's the economy, stupid. It is not only the economy, it's the border to a certain degree, stupid. Here's the fact of the matter. Democrats' platform, and I don't think it was necessarily flawed, at least until you look at what surrounded it. was that Donald Trump was a fundamental threat to democracy. This is a guy who won a free and fair election in 2016, lost a free and fair election in 2020, and proceeded to call it rigged, as did everybody around him. Those who didn't, exiled from the party entirely in many cases, in many instances. To the point where he, objectively, Trump supporters, you had your day in the sun. Can I bring it back down to earth for a little bit? Incited an insurrection on the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. And for those that say, well, he didn't explicitly say, I say yes, he did. But even if he didn't, he did nothing for 3 hours. The biggest, most active politician in the history of social media said nothing for 3 hours as the Capitol got ransacked. And for that reason, Democrats said he is a threat to democracy. Frankly, I generally kind of agreed with them. Matter of fact, strongly agreed with them. But when you look at what surrounded it, when you look at the way they got there to that message, the way they conveyed that message, oh, it was deeply flawed. Their message, led in large part by the President of the United States, Joe Biden, was because Trump is so, in their minds and the minds of many, so fundamentally unfit for the office of President of the United States. Because of the chaos of his first term in office between 2017 and 2021, well, I mean, they're not going to look at us as that bad. We do accept free and fair elections. Both President Biden and Vice President Harris, who lost the election, did in fact do that. The Democrats, mostly across the board, did. We're going to bring a sense of normalcy to the White House. We're going to bring a certain decorum back to the White House, and in large part, to Biden's credit, I think he did that. So at least certainly relative to the previous administration, but they banked on too much of that was going to carry them to the finish line. Is it to me that there are so many turning points or so many reasons that we got to where we got. If you look at the 2022 midterms, when it was going to be, and this is why, but can I say this just in the middle of this? Can we, I cannot emphasize this enough because this drives me up a wall with politics. And it's not Republican or Democrat, it's polls. Can we stop listening to polls once and for all? Polls said Hillary was going to win. Polls said there was going to be a red wave in 2022. And polls said, regardless of who you thought was going to win, that it was a neck-and-neck election. And this is what we got. That neck-and-neck election, bam. That's what we got. Right there. You see, that is, you want to talk about a red wave. That is a red tsunami with little sprinkles of blue here and there. There's large segments, I guess, here and there. There's like one tiny one in like Texas and some of the New England states. It was a red tsunami that the polls said were going to be close. So for the love of all that is good, can we please stop giving pollsters a platform? Because you never know. As I always say, you don't ever know until election day. You never know until election day. As an aside. Because these disastrous polls indicated red wave in 2022 in the midterms. And that's, in large part, that is normally what happens to incumbent presidents in their first 2 years of office. They get trounced in the midterms. That didn't happen. As a matter of fact, Democrats retained many of their seats in the Senate and the House. It wasn't the disaster they thought it'd be. And that's when they got cocky. Joe Biden, who by all counts was supposed to be a transitional president, a bridge. We talk about to use a sports example in the NFL, we talk about bridge quarterbacks. We talk about guys who, like the Patriots, for example. Jacoby Brissett is a bridge quarterback to Drake May. Alex Smith was their franchise quarterback for a while, but once the Chiefs drafted Mahomes, it was only a matter of time. Alex Smith was a bridge quarterback to Mahomes. Joe Biden was supposed to be a bridge president for a new generation of leaders, such as potentially Kamala Harris. He says, no, I'm not going to run. I am going to run for re-election. And in the process, I'm going to continue. The party, in large part, is going to continue to do something that I think both sides in their own ways have been guilty of, but Democrats lost. Matter of fact, got trounced in the election. We've got to give them the bulk of the blame today. Is the fact that, in no other uncertain terms, Democrats are really, really bad at lecturing, at telling the voters what is important. If you think about the fact in 2016, I am a strong proponent. And by the way, folks, I say this as a political independent. I did not vote for Trump. Matter of fact, I voted for Kamala Harris as a political independent. But being an independent allows you to be able to criticize both parties. That's the beauty of it. In 2016, Hillary Clinton, in my humble opinion, matter of fact, strong opinion, I do not believe she was the best candidate that the Democrats could have put forward. Strongly believe that. But Democrats said, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a proponent of this, she said, I'm not going to be replaced by Barack Obama. I'm going to be replaced in the Supreme Court by the first female president. That backfired. Justice Ginsburg passed away during Trump's administration. She got replaced by Donald Trump. If you think about the fact, in 2024, kind of a similar thing with Kamala Harris, in the sense that we're not going to lecture you about Kamala necessarily being the first president, all that. Matter of fact, I think Kamala was actually kind of intent that I'm not going to make that the center of my campaign the way Hillary Clinton did. What the Democrats are going to do over the course of 4 years, when people complain about inflation, when people complain about the fact that objectively the border was a disaster. Well, Bryson, they put up a border bill in 2024. Why did it take them that long? Yes, I blame Donald Trump for that border bill coming through because he called top Republicans, in particular the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, got that sucker blocked. And as a result, Border Patrol, all these different things that could have helped the crisis down there did not happen. My question is, why did it have to get to that point? It's a thing in sports that drives me crazy. Anytime that a team loses a close game by the skin of their teeth and they say, it's the ref's fault, my response is always the same. If you needed the ref to make the call, if you rely on that call to win you the game, you didn't play well enough to win the game. Point blank. If you needed Trump to, if you had to worry about Trump interfering, you didn't do a good enough job in the 3 years prior. Democrats didn't take accountability for that. Something else I've heard from liberals today, some, not many, but some, in the national media is, hey, I mean, the economy's doing well. And by the way, I get it, and I don't want to sound like an elitist right here. God knows I don't want to sound like that. But by the numbers, the economy has absolutely objectively improved. Inflation has come down since when inflation hit its highest point in the early parts of the Biden administration. The economy has gotten better objectively. There's no question about it. But what Democrats would say, hey, why getting us about the economy? And we are, while you guys are, you as in conservatives, Republicans, or just American voters are complaining about this, we're busy working on it. We don't have time to market our product. That's your job. That would be like if a quarterback said, hey, I mean, crap, I'm reading defenses. I'm evading pressure. I'm doing the best of my ability in terms of throwing the football. I'm doing all these things. What do you want me to do? Be good with the media? Yeah, that's part of your job description. You are supposed to be good with the media as a quarterback. You are supposed to sell your ideas. That's the whole point of winning office. That's the whole point of running elections. Winning elections is selling your ideas to the American people. And when it's all said and done, because they couldn't, Republicans said, you know what? Donald Trump is really flawed. So what we will do, we've got his base. MAGA is with Trump till the end. What we are going to do is, because the Democrats can't highlight their greatest attributes and aspects, we're going to expose their blind spots. We're going to expose the fact that they have, in large parts, fallen prey to the far left, as it relates to not even just anti-Israeli protest, anti-Semitic protest on these college campuses. We are going to expose the fact that Kamala Harris, in an ad, and again, by the way, I want to say on the front end, anybody who's trans out there, I love you the same as I do everybody else. And I think anybody who is dehumanizing them in any way is disgusting. And I've seen that in large parts from the right. But the stats show, the early returns show that ad that the Trump campaign ran when Kamala Harris said that I don't know if, I think it was from when she ran for president the first time in 2020, that she would have the federal government pay for sex changes for prisoners, for those that are incarcerated. And folks, Charlamagne the guy on the Breakfast Club and others were like, "Hey, time out, this is my taxpayer dollars going to." Nothing against transgenders at all, but that's at the top of the agenda. I don't think it was for Kamala Harris. The Republicans did a better job of campaign on that than she did at going back on it or trying to turn that around. Republicans also did this. Democrats, one of their major issues is they relied too much on legacy media. They relied too much on Fox News, on CBS, on The View, on all these CNN. Republicans said, no. That's not where the audience is. The audience is on podcasts. The audience is now in a digital sense. Joe Rogan, the interview with Donald Trump. I believe I think if the numbers serve me correctly, I think it was like 40-something million people watched the interview with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, like or dislike him, and I have my issues with Joe Rogan, he's got a gigantic audience, primarily men. You don't think Kamala Harris could have maybe helped her? Because personally, I find Kamala, agree or disagree with her policy, I find Kamala Harris to be a relatively likable human being. I do. Maybe that's just me being, maybe I'm reading the room wrong. I have no reason to believe, because I got why people rejected Hillary in 2016. We know the corruption that comes with the Clinton family in large parts. That doesn't really happen with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a down-to-earth individual. Kamala Harris does not have the dark shadows of corruption the way that other political individuals have, particularly the Clintons. They rejected her because of this. They rejected her because issues that the voters were clamoring about. Democrats, in some cases the president, said, they didn't say, no, it's getting better. They said, no, it's getting better and you're wrong to complain about it. Again, going back to, they lectured the voting public, the electorate, on what was actually important. When the electorate was like, we're the ones that employ you. we're telling you what's important. The fact of the matter is this, and this is how I'll close, and then I'll get to comments. Feel free to comment. Let me know what you think, and I'd love to interact with you guys. Is that I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the left right now as it relates to the blame game, in the sense, like, of course, there's things that went wrong. I think I detail a lot of those things. I'm seeing folks out there blaming the voters. I'm seeing a startling and troubling increase of, well, you voted against her because she's a woman. Folks, are there people out there that actually did cross their mind? I do. We know that there's inherent sexism, misogyny, just like there is racism. There's no question about that in our society, in our culture. Do I think that was a driving force in her losing the popular vote, which no Democrat has done since John Kerry to George W. Bush in the 2004 election, and the first time in 36 years, second time rather than 36 years in presidential elections that happened? Do I think misogyny was the leading cause of that? The numbers simply don't back that up. They don't. Exit polls would show you that. Trump actually gained in certain people groups, as opposed to, he's up 13% with Latinos compared to his last run. He's up 5% with Black Americans compared to his last run. If the platform, and again, it's been 3 days since the darn election. Actually, not even 3 days at the time that we're live, as opposed to, in terms of when the results came out, early Wednesday morning, 2 a.m. around that time. If the reaction and the after effects from the left is going to be, you voted against her because you're racist, because you're misogynistic, and that's why she lost. I've got bad news. 71 million people plus in this country are not racist, misogynistic, or any of the above. Are there people in that group that are? You better believe it. You bet. Joe Rogan, who voted for Trump, so it holds more credibility. Joe Rogan said in his podcast, listen, all people who vote for Donald Trump are not racist and sexist, or all people who vote for Donald Trump are not racist. All racists vote for Donald Trump. And I agree with that statement. I've yet to see any white guy down the street, waving the Confederate flag saying, hey, vote for Kamala today. It makes sense. To paint all of them as that will continue to cost you in the 26 midterms. It will cost you in 28, and even moving forward from there. Democrats, more than anything, have to do a significantly better job at selling their ideas and stop freaking lecturing people. Stop telling the voters what's important. Let the voters decide, well, we've got the information, that we got these things that Biden did well. Sell them then. Do a better job of conveying that in a message that anybody can buy into. Don't say, no, it actually is going well, and how dare you criticize me? How dare you, you question it? Hey, democracy. For Kamala Harris, listen, folks that are blaming Kamala for the loss, if I had to have a blame pie for this election, I give Kamala maybe 5 to 6%, if that. Folks, Kamala was in a tough spot. Joe Biden increasingly becoming less and less popular by the day. The June 27th debate against Donald Trump all but sealed the fact that, I just, for a lot of minds of a lot of voters, like, gosh, he's barely functioning up there. What do we got? We can't vote for that because the Democrats didn't decide to allow him to primary, to allow the vice president to primary against other Democratic presidential hopefuls. And so Biden drops out last minute, late July, and it's like, Kamala, run a campaign for 107 days. It's like, okay, here's my positions. Tim Walz, you're my VP. It was disorganized since the 2022 midterms, and disorganization cost them badly. They lost the presidency, they lost the Senate, and they're probably going to lose the House. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm seeing right now it's kind of razor thin. Democrats could still get the House potentially, but it's very much on the board. Democrats get a clean sweep across the board, and they got the Supreme Court. It's time the Democrats look themselves in the mirror, figure out that the central part of their campaign, the central part of their party platform is going to be to serve the American public, serve the American people, in particular the working class. That's got to be the thing. I mean, Trump actually got a better percentage of the vote than Kamala for people making less than $100,000 a year. Flawed as his economic policies, I strongly believe them to be, at the very least, and I think it's a lie. I've said the greatest lie Trump ever told was that he cared about the working man. But at least he said he did care about the working man, and he promoted that more so than the Democrats did. That's why we got what we got. So, listen, and by the way, it is good, and I give props. It is great this time that the Democrats did not rig this election, since kind of like they did rig the 2021. I know there was a lot of issues with dead people voting and illegal immigrants. I'm glad that wasn't a problem this go around. I mean, all of a sudden, this election is totally fair and free. I don't know. I must have missed the boat on that one, but either way, there you go. All right, let me take a drink of water and get to my comments because I want to know what you guys think about it, because it is gigantic. One way or the other. EJ Savage, Boys in the Sun. What's up, EJ? He says, Democrats made social issues their main campaign focuses, and people only care about social issues when they're privileged enough not to have to worry about the economy, food, and gas prices. Always seemed always, if I can read today, also seemed way more about Trump being bad than Kamala being good from their side. And again, but let's pull this back up. They didn't even say it was neck and neck until the last polls. Tells me they were trying to deter people from voting based on their polls. I don't necessarily disagree with that, for the simple fact that ever since Kamala entered the race, or was thrust into the race, if you want to put it that way, in late July, neck and neck. It was right there in the polls. And the fact of the matter is, there were those, to me, this is where Kamala tanked her campaign. This, if you want to put blame on Kamala, put it on this. When she entered the race, those that were not going to vote for Joe Biden, these independent voters, which make up basically half the country, and there's way more independents in this country than Republicans and Democrats. The numbers are overwhelmingly show that. Those that were open to the prospects of voting for Kamala, or that weren't for Biden because of what they've seen in terms of his decline, in terms of they didn't agree with his policies, they're like, okay, let's keep them on open mind. Let's see what Kamala Harris brings to the table, because we didn't like Joe Biden's policies. And when she goes on The View and Sunny Hostin asks, is there anything you would do different from Joe Biden? And Kamala says, and I quote, there's nothing that comes to mind. That was it. That was it. We can talk about, listen, I think I've studied presidential history my entire life. And I will continue to do so because I love it. I think the presidency tells the story of America as much as any institution that we have. It's obviously the most important individual in the country, certainly, and even in the world in some respects. And I truly and strongly to the core of my being believe that this man is the most unfit individual to ever serve in that office. Ever. For a number of reasons. With that said, take those that are racist, misogynistic, homophobic jerks, put them aside, because that 71 million people are not that. Those that voted for him because they didn't necessarily buy into what the Dems were selling. They didn't like the lecture. They didn't like the fact that they weren't putting as much attention into the economy and then the border as they would have preferred. Court those people. They can be won. If a guy like Donald Trump can win them, you can't. Ball's in your court, Democrats. In 2 years. Let's see what you got. Let's see if your message changes. Yeah, my Ryan Flowers agrees with my text. EJ Savage, yeah, she should have ran Shapiro as her VP. Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. Maybe, potentially, and I don't even necessarily agree with this. He said, then again, I doubt he would have wanted to connect himself to her, being honest. Listen, I think if Kamala Harris went to Josh Shapiro and said, do you want to be my VP? I think he would have said yes. I mean, listen, you don't do much as vice president other than being the tie-breaking vote in the Senate when the time calls for it, which is rare. I think, had she gotten Shapiro, could she have won Pennsylvania, which was the state? That's Florida 2000, Pennsylvania 2024. Could she have won Pennsylvania? Sure. Could it have tipped the scales in the blue wall states? Maybe. But again, I cannot emphasize enough. She lost the thing that I think is not getting enough play right now. She lost the popular vote. Republicans don't ever win the popular vote since 1988. That's the last time they won the popular vote consistently. So between the 1992 election and 2024, 04 and 24, only time Republicans have won the popular vote. And Trump won all of the swing states without fail. So listen, the messaging has got to change for this party to have any success whatsoever moving forward. And again, I want to make myself abundantly clear when I say this. Trump's going to be in office for 4 years because that's what the American people want. And we ought to respect their right to make that choice. I have no reason to believe that this individual is going to change his rhetoric, adjust the way that he talks about different groups of people. I mean, he won president twice. Why would I think that's going to change? Especially the guy is 78 years old. With all due respect, most people of that age group don't evolve that much at that stage of their life. Those that have avoided prison, which Trump probably did, those that have gotten away with certain things even prior to his political career, the way that Donald Trump has, I don't anticipate him changing. And I anticipate he will continue to be the divisive individual that he has prided himself on being. I believe that he's going to be the unfit individual that he is, the non-detail oriented guy that he's shown himself consistently throughout his life to be. But I cannot emphasize this enough. And I will criticize when the time comes, and I'm sure it will come often, I will criticize him vehemently. You cannot throw all his supporters, the ones that said, I just voted for him because I think the economy is not that good. I was worried about the border, which is a perfectly legitimate concern. You can't throw those people in the same camp as him. If you're American citizens, it destroys your relationships. If you're a politician in Washington on the Democratic Party, it crushes your election opportunities. That's what I'll say. No question about it. And I think I see Ryan, if I can pull up Ryan's comment. Biden was too selfish to get out of the way sooner. Agreed. Harris was put in a tough spot. Let's be real. She wasn't even a viable candidate when she tried to run in 2016. No, Harris her first run for president was 2020, and she didn't get to Iowa. Or early on in 2020. So she wasn't even among the finals like Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, etc. And those that are asking, I guess it's the last take I'll have, and then I'll go forward. Those that are asking, well, who's going to be the Dem nominee in 28? First of all, it's 28. I don't, who freaking knows? It's probably not be Kamala. History shows you lose your first election for running for president, they don't bring you back. Ask Mitt Romney, ask people throughout history, John McCain, ask Hillary Clinton, ask these individuals who lost their opportunity. John Kerry, Al Gore. Al Gore lost by 5 electoral votes. I think that was the final. I think that was the final total. I think it was 5. It was Rage Within. The last guy, last individual to lose their first bid for president and come back was Richard Nixon. Yeah, 60 was maybe outside of 2000 the closest election in history. Might have actually been closer. If you look at some of these precincts, might have actually been closer than 2000. So it makes sense for them to bring him back. But if I had to make a prediction now, I'll put it down now. I think J.D. Vance is the nominee in 28 on the Republican ticket. I don't think there's any question about it. He's Donald Trump, but a millennial. I mean, that's kind of what he is. I'm not a fan of J.D. Vance, but that's the reality. And he's got significant popularity on the Republican side. I think he's the nominee in 28. On the Democratic side, here's my prediction. Because I'm a fan of Wes Moore, Governor of Maryland. I really like Wes Moore. There's some individuals, Pete Buttigieg, would his America raise a vote for a gay person as president? I don't know. I hate that would be a factor in their decision if it is, because I think Pete Buttigieg is wicked smart and detail-oriented, which matters to me. That's why I was such a fan of Barack Obama, because he was. My prediction is we don't know who they are. The general population does not know who this person is. That's your nominee. How many people knew who Barack Obama was in 2004 when George W. Bush beat John Kerry? My prediction is somebody we don't know. All right. And again, this is seriously, this is the last cut because we've spent 30 minutes of the show talking about the election. We'll move to sports. But Patrick Brown, as a black man, it's been overwhelming emotions, heartbreaking as it appears. I'll do all I can to protect my little ones. And that's got to be, there's a lot of heartbroken people in this country. I'll be frank. Around 11:30-ish, midnight, somewhere around that time, after a while, I kind of like a pit in my stomach. I'm like, oh, he's going to win. Like, she does. The math is not mathing. It's not. I'm watching John King on CNN breaking down some of these counties. I'm like, she's not winning this. And I get why people are scared. Frankly, I'm pretty, to put it mildly, quite nervous about what a second Trump administration looks like, given what we saw in the first. I'm really nervous about that. I'm gonna be frank with you guys. But what's got to happen moving forward with the people? I don't know what's going to happen in Washington. I gave the Democrats advice. The advice I can give for Americans, those that are of bad faith, those that are hate people groups for their own different prejudice, put them aside. You can't reason with those people. Those that aren't, but just happen to vote a different way than you did, it's time for empathy. It's time to have hard conversations. It's time to these conversations may have tears. They may be difficult to have, but they got to happen if we want to have a successful and safe democracy in the United States of America. That's what I've got. I should say that's all I've got. That was 30 minutes of election breakdown, but that's how I felt. Okay, we're going to take a break. I spent 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a break. Be back with a reaction to the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. What a game that was last night. Be back in a minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So transition to sports now, because there was, I'll briefly just mention this. Won't have time to do segments on it, but because I missed the show on Wednesday, we had some crazy stuff happen the last few days. So the trade deadline happened. It was quite favorable to my Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm obviously repping us today. Big time matchup coming up ahead against the Washington Commanders on Sunday. Huge matchup. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Williams, I gotta admit to you, I'm not crazy about. Mike Williams is a great red zone target. The physicality brings to the table, but the guy can't stay healthy. If you remember when I was talking about when he signed with the Jets, it's like, okay, how often is he going to be out there? And we know he had some issues with Aaron Rodgers, and a lot of receivers have had problems with Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see. Let's see what happens with Mike Williams is my reaction. Here's what I got excited about. Preston Smith. I was getting my sister about this. She's a big Packers fan, and she was like, wait, we traded who? I was like, oh, yeah. Listen, Preston Smith's not having the greatest year. I think he's only got 2-3 sacks on the season this year. We get that. He's an aging pass rusher, but with how deep Pittsburgh's defensive line is. Listen, they got the best defensive player on the face of God's green earth in TJ Watt. But you got Cam Hayward, who's been a rock on the interior of that D-line for a long, long time, over a decade. And you've got Alex Highsmith, excellent pass rusher. Nick Herbig behind them, maybe a good third down pass rusher if, God forbid, somebody goes down. And you got Preston Smith. So the thing about the Steelers is they're going to have such a fresh lineup, fresh substitution potentially of all these passers, guys that can get to the quarterback consistently. So I think, listen, I'm going to say right now, I think Pittsburgh got the best defensive line in professional football. I don't think there's the addition of Preston Smith solidifies that. Second thing, Dak might have season-ending hamstring surgery. I talked about Dak's injury and how he was going to be out for a while on Monday and how just all these situations going on with the Cowboys, how they handled their offseason, Dak's contract, all those different things. McCarthy, it was worst case scenario. Dak, listen, I don't know if he had surgery or not. I don't know the particulars. I saw that the injury he suffered, the hamstring was like torn off the bone for Dak, which was like, that doesn't sound good. If he needs season-ending surgery, obviously hope for a quick recovery for Dak. As the biggest, I got his freaking bobblehead back there. As the biggest Dak Prescott fan on earth, my man, just chalk it up for the season. Now, Dak's a competitor. I get it. Dak's a competitor, but Dallas on a week-to-week basis was throwing that man to the wolves. Let's just keep it real. They were. The O-line's not good. Running game's the single worst in football. Receiving core minus CeeDee Lamb is the worst in football. Just recalibrate and see whatever the heck Jerry Jones wants to do this offseason. Last thing I wanted to bring up, then we'll move to Baltimore, is this. The Golden State Warriors are back. Okay, we're back. Now, we got a game tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Huge game. 9-0 Cavs, 7-1 Warriors. It's a shame that game isn't on national TV. I can't wait to watch it tonight. But all the narratives and storylines, Golden State coming to Boston. Yeah, Jaylen Brown was out. I get it. But the story was not Jaylen Brown. The story was Jason Tatum. And Jason Tatum versus the Warriors, in particular, Steve Kerr. Oh, I can Kerr play him. Boy, I did a lot of segments about this back in August. Why didn't Steve Kerr play Jason Tatum? Let's see. On a minute-per-minute basis, he was the worst player in Team USA. At least he played like it. Now, Tatum was actually pretty good. He had 32 points in this game. But old Steph Curry, the proud father of the Boston Celtics, didn't literally put them night-night. He didn't do night-night, but him, his splash cousin, Buddy Hield, Draymond Green locking him down the defensive end, the depth of the Golden State Warriors, which is the best I've seen there since 2015 and 16. Strength in numbers is back. Did you hear Brian Windhorst on ESPN? Did you hear what he said? About how the Warriors are the biggest candidate in the National Basketball Association to make a big trade? I don't know. I'm looking at the standings right now for the NBA. And my wondering eyes drift towards the Eastern Conference. Oh my goodness. I see a team that is currently 13th in the East. A team that won the championship just 3 seasons ago, the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks aren't very good right now, y'all. They're 2-6. Doc Rivers has been an unmitigated disaster since he got the job. Chris Middleton's hurt, and the roster's old and not deep at all. Giannis, maybe. I'm just saying. Giannis, Steph Curry. That sound like an unstoppable duo to you? It does to me. The Warriors have the assets to get him and still maintain a healthy level of depth with an elite coach in Steve Kerr. I'm just saying. I said before the year, I didn't pick the Warriors to win the finals. I did not. I said we win the playoffs, win a playoff series because we're better, objectively better this year than last year. The returns are already showing that. But I didn't think we had quite enough star power to get over the top as a champion. Add a guy like Giannis. Kevin Durant feels like it's off the table, even though we're a month in because KD and the Suns are playing well. Kudos to them. Giannis sounds like a reasonable bet. Just throwing that out there. Happy Warriors fan today. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good. If we beat the Cavs tonight, I'm feeling real, real good. Because A, we beat the last undefeated team left, and B, it's Cleveland. And anytime any of my teams, particularly the Warriors, beat Cleveland, it's a special, special day in the carving it up world. It's great. And Patrick said it best. Darvin smoked Ham Rivers. The Bucks are cooked. And listen, I didn't believe Milwaukee for the season. I thought they were going to be. I had them as the 6th seed, barely missing out in the play-in, or barely avoiding the play-in, rather. We're 8 games in. I mean, 8 out of 82. It's a long way to go. And Giannis is still awesome. But man, it ain't looking good. And you're right. Remember when Darvin Ham got fired? How could you fire Darvin Ham? I don't know. He might be the worst coach in basketball. I know the Lakers are going through a little bit, some struggles, but J.J. Redick's in his first year, and I think is a great coach with not a ton to work with in terms of the depth on that roster beyond LeBron and AD. We'll talk about basketball moving forward. All I know is Dub Nation's back, baby. And we're just as good as we were 3 years ago. I'd argue better than we were 3 years ago when we won the finals. We're deeper. I'm just saying. Transition to Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, who won last night 35-34 in a classic. I mean, both these games, Bengals, Ravens. Ravens win both. Joe Burrow in his career 1-6 against Baltimore. The Ravens, regardless how well Burrow plays, kind of own them. But both games, you won the first one 41-38 a month ago in overtime when the Ravens won. Derrick Henry kind of slammed the door, got him in a field goal range. Tucker walked it off. And then last night, 35-34 in a game where both quarterbacks were nothing short of spectacular. Joe Burrow in this game, they asked him to throw 56 times. He said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw 4 touchdown passes. I'm going to pass for over 100. I ain't going to throw a single pick in 56 attempts. I'm going to do my thing, which he did. Against a god-awful Baltimore pass defense. That's another story for another day. Lamar Jackson said, anything you can do, I can do better, my man. I'm going to give you over 300 yards of offense. Okay, 4 touchdowns through the air. QBR 0-183 and a passer rating of 141 after just having a perfect passer rating on Sunday against the Denver Broncos. Now, I may be wearing a Steelers hoodie, and I may not like the Ravens, but I love me some Lamar Jackson. This guy, there's criticisms of Lamar that I'm literally about to touch on in just a minute. But in the respect that, not a great thrower from the pocket, can we please move on from that? Please. I'm all but begging at this point. Is he as natural as Burrow or Mahomes? No, but can he do pretty much anything he wants on the field? Yeah, he can do that. Lamar Jackson, I was talking to a friend of mine. Matter of fact, my co-host, Asher Moore. Shout out to Asher Moore, Addison Ragland, my co-host on the Triple Option every Monday and Friday. Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern, Fridays at noon Eastern. I put the link to the Triple Option every time we go live on my show. Please follow me on Instagram for that. Point is, Asher was telling me, he said, you know what Lamar's touchdown interception ratio is? And I was very close. I said 24-3. He said, you were right there, 24-2. 24-2 pass touchdown to interception ratio for Lamar Jackson. He's also number 1, numero uno, in QBR. 0-100, Lamar Jackson has a QBR of 77.6. And this, my friends, is why I say the criticism of Lamar as a passer are absurd. The criticism of his playoff resume will only heighten. Keep in mind, Lamar Jackson's first year in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens were kind of middling, very mid football team. Lamar takes over. They get hot, win the AFC North, and then lose to the Chargers with their lowest point total of the season. The next year, Lamar Jackson shows up, and it's like, oh, hello, MVP of the league, Lamar Jackson, 14-2, Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to say odds-on favorite because he had the Chiefs who hadn't won quite yet, but Ravens felt like the favorite to win the AFC and potentially win the Super Bowl that year. And Lamar Jackson, despite what his numbers would show you, I think he counted for like 500 yards of offense. Watch the game. Lamar Jackson did not play well against the Tennessee Titans. And the Ravens recorded, if notes serve me correctly, their lowest point total of the season. The next year, the Ravens are really good. Playoff team. I think they won 11 games that season. It was the COVID year. They go to Tennessee. It's against the Titans. Get revenge on Tennessee. Go to Buffalo. And the Ravens register their lowest point total of the season. The next two years, the Ravens missed the playoffs, made the playoffs. Lamar Jackson was out for both because he was hurt at the end of those seasons. And then last year arrives. Lamar wins another MVP. The Ravens are, I think, almost a consensus pick to win the AFC because how they looked offensively and their defense was the best in football, arguably. They trounced Houston. Lamar's great. And then they face the world champions, a team that has to make you play on their terms. And Lamar Jackson was not good. And the Ravens had, again, their lowest point total of the season. Lamar has done pretty much everything that a guy can do other than win a Super Bowl. He's won multiple MVPs. Folks, it is unprecedented what Lamar Jackson might do this season. So he is, I don't think it's even arguable. He's the front runner for MVP. You can argue Goff. I would make a little bit of a case. I think Josh Allen is quietly having a fantastic season, could run down Lamar. Joe Burrow would be in the discussion if the Bengals' record was better. It's not Joe Burrow's fault. He's been great this year. I think Mahomes' fourth quarter numbers at least warrants a discussion. Mahomes has been the best fourth quarter quarterback in football. But Lamar Jackson in the fourth quarter games, this is what he's done. Win trail, not even the fourth quarter, win trail this year, Lamar Jackson. 1,000 passing yards, 273 rush yards, 11 touchdowns to 0 picks. In other words, he's been unreal when trailing this season has been Lamar Jackson. Why can't you give us that in the playoffs? Now, maybe I'm asking that the wrong way. Maybe it's why can't you? The question should be, why can't you? It's why haven't you? Maybe he can. Peyton Manning was the ultimate. Yeah, he puts up a lot of numbers. Yeah, he wins MVPs, but darn it, he can't win the big one. He can't beat Brady. And a reasonable argument for Peyton, my guy, go Vols, love me some Peyton Manning. A reasonable argument could have been, yeah, it's Brady and it's the Patriots. Like, yeah, but most people don't beat them. And then Peyton did. 2006 season, AFC title game. Matter of fact, did it in comeback form. The Colts were down 21-3 in that game. Come back and beat the Patriots. That was the year for New England went undefeated. Went in 07. Peyton Manning outplayed Brady in that game. They came back and won. I think that's kind of what we're seeing now. We're seeing a little bit of a setup the way we saw with Manning and Brady. Where Mahomes, the difference between Brady and Mahomes at this stage in their careers is Mahomes also has MVPs in addition to his championships. Brady hadn't quite gotten there yet. But both have a reputation for being a winner. Both have a reputation for coming up clutch when you absolutely need them the most. Both had a reputation, or at least the teams had a reputation, with great coaches who specialize greatly in their side of the ball. Belichick on defense, Reid on offense. And the other guy who had the MVPs, Manning, Lamar, uber talented, blew us away in their own unique ways. Just couldn't get there. I'd say it's going to be set for us to get a Chiefs-Ravens game. That one's probably going to be an Arrowhead, which it was on opening night, and the Ravens almost got that W. But I think what I've always said about athletes, see Aaron Judge, see James Harden, see guys that are just Joel Embiid, guys that just do not, play to the way that we think they should play in the playoffs. It is this simple. I've always said this. Unless we're talking about like a do or die spot where it's the back's against the wall and the talent on your roster just isn't that good and you have to play above your standard. That's the exception. But generally what we ask of our athletes in the postseason, can you maintain your greatness when the circumstances get tougher and harder? Can you maintain them? Now, they're all-time great ones. Michael Jordan, Brady, Mahomes, LeBron James, Steph Curry. They elevate. They get better when the lights get brighter. They get better when you need them to come up big in the long run. But even if they maintain their level of greatness, that'd probably be good enough. Lamar's not even been able to do that. Now, can he? I mean, we have a lot of regular season evidence to say he should be able to. So that's going to be the question. Again, the Ravens are in, unlike last season, kind of a dogfight. You can say Cleveland was never running them down last year. Come on. Using a million quarterbacks. Baltimore is in a dogfight with the Steelers. My Steelers, who, ironically, these two teams face off next week. So the Ravens, it's very much on the board. They'll have to go through a road playoff run. The way that the Giants with Eli had to do twice, the way the Packers did with Rodgers, the way the Bucks did with Brady. Like, it's been done before. Can you elevate your level of play once January arrives? Or not even just that. Can you maintain? I should say that. Can you maintain your level of greatness and excellence that we saw on display last night against a division rival who knows you better than anybody and you freaking cooked them? Can you maintain that once the playoffs arrive? That'll be the question. And by the way, I don't think if voters hold it against Lamar, MVP voters holding against Lamar, that he has not won it all, not even hasn't won it all, hasn't been great in the big games, hasn't been to a Super Bowl, I'll get it. That was my argument against Jokic for years. When Nikola Jokic won back-to-back MVPs, it's like, guys, he doesn't validate. Because to me, when you win an MVP, you got to validate it in the postseason when the games really matter. Jokic hadn't really done that yet until he did. Until he did in 2023. It's like, okay, there it is. That's the MVP performance I see from you in the regular season, and I see in the postseason. I need to see it from Lamar Jackson. Simple as that. What do we got in the comments up in here? Oh, Patrick is right on this one. I feel for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Both guys put up sensational numbers and came up short. How's Jamar Chase not paid? Honest to God, the man had 264 and 3 tuds. Like, he's cooking Baltimore. Now, a lot of people cook Baltimore's defense because they're not very good. That could plague them in the future. But gosh darn it, man. Like, what more do you got to see? I mean, I was talking to my man Grady today. Shout out Grady Edwards. And he was saying, hey, I found that he's a Patriots fan. I found the spot for Belichick, the Bengals. I'm like, on surface value, that works. He can fix their defense. He's got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, that foundational. I'll tell you why Belichick, at least in my mind, won't go to Cincinnati. They have the cheapest owner in football, in Paul Brown. I mean, for crying out loud, that franchise doesn't have an indoor practice facility. So, and he asked if Zach Taylor is fired after the season. Would Ben Johnson be an option? I mean, I think so. I think that'd be a attractable destination potentially because Belichick's different. Belichick is in his early to mid-70s. He's chasing Shula, and he's in it to win right now. Ben Johnson is different. So I'll say these coaching searches are going to be something else moving forward. Patrick, Action Jackson is the real deal. When Cincinnati and Baltimore link up, best believe it's going to be a nail-biter. No doubt about that. Get your popcorn ready and enjoy some cinematic football. I knew Patrick was going to fit the Cowboys in here somewhere. He's a big Cowboys fan. Derrick Henry has given Baltimore a different dynamic. Every time he runs, I scream, thank you, Jerry. What could have been with King Henry in Dallas? Well, Patrick, they just didn't have enough money to get him. What are you going to do? Eventually your wallet, when you're worth $8 billion, I mean, you just kind of run out of money at some point. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a salary cap league, but come on. Derrick Henry's in the market. We've had that. We, as the general football viewing population, fans, have, I think, all pretty much come to a consensus that was a pretty bad call. But Jerry's used to those. All right. We got the Vol View. Yeah, Vol View's coming up next. So Tennessee, I was at that game last week against Kentucky. First of all, what did primetime Deion Sanders say at best? You look good, you feel good, you play good. Woo! It looked good in those black and orange uniforms. Halloween vibes. There was the spooky Rocky top going on in Neyland Stadium. It was a sight to behold. Like, the stadium was like decked out in, like, there were spots of orange. Yeah, it wasn't like a blackout the way like Penn State does a whiteout, but it was most people wearing black in the stands, and it looked kind of awesome. Like, it looks like a Halloween environment with like spots of orange. And that's kind of what you saw on the football field. But Tennessee struggled against Kentucky. At times offensively, turned on the second half. Here's what I want to see from Tennessee. Well, I'll say that for the Vol View. The Vol View starts right now. And again, as always, it's football time in Tennessee.
You're darn right. It's football time in Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
Indeed, it is another home game for Tennessee on Rocky Top against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. My man Dak Prescott's alma mater. Tennessee is a 24.5-point favorite in this game, and for good reason. So lots happened in college football this week. I didn't get a chance because we didn't do a show on Wednesday due to scheduling conflicts. We didn't get a chance to talk about the college football playoff poll. Yeah, you had the big poll that decided who the president's going to be. And then there was the other poll that's like, who's going to the playoff? Now, of course, we're going to have more college football playoff polls to come in the coming month or so. And then the big one, of course, is going to come after the conference championship games. But Tennessee is in the college football playoff poll where they are in the AP poll, which is 7th, which I think is totally fair. I would have put Tennessee above the rankings right now. If we have the college football rankings, see if we pull this up here. Do I think Tennessee should be above Penn State? Yeah, I do. I mean, Penn State's toughest game was against Ohio State, and they lost and did not play well. Tennessee's toughest game thus far until Georgia next week was Alabama, and they won. Sure, Tennessee has a worse loss than Penn State, but they've also played a significantly more difficult strength of schedule than the Nittany Lions. Nonetheless, 6-7, tomato, you got that ground to make up, and I think Tennessee can do that. But last week against Kentucky, and even the week before against Alabama, week before that against Florida, Tennessee's had a real problem. And even before that, actually, against Arkansas, Tennessee's had a real problem with generating offense in the first half of games. If you look at the last month or so, against Arkansas, which is Tennessee's only loss of the season, Tennessee shut out in the first half. Against the Florida Gators for Tennessee, shut out in the first half. Against Alabama, shut out in the first half. And against Kentucky, Tennessee scored 7 in the first half. So I guess, hey, baby steps. You go shut out 3 times, score a touchdown. Now, do I think they're going to get shut out in the first half by the 2-7 Mississippi State Bulldogs, whose best wins come against Eastern Kentucky? I think it was Eastern Kentucky and UMass. And no, I do not see that coming. And I do think Tennessee, for the record, is going to win by a lot. They'll cover the whole shebang. But in games like this, sure, it's SEC competition, but you're significantly better than Mississippi State. That goes without saying. I want to see a momentum built with Tennessee's offense, because a lot of this issue, folks, has been self-inflicted wounds. And I talked about this for Tennessee before the game against Kentucky coming out of the bye week. My thing is, okay, the running game is working. Dylan Sampson, shout out Dylan Sampson, by the way, because of the help of his offensive line and Nico Iamaleava, everybody pushed him in the end zone. Fourth quarter against Kentucky. My man Dylan Sampson breaks Tennessee's all-time single season rush touchdown record. Listen, the Heisman race is a 2-man race. Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. Could Dylan be, I mean, is it fair to say considered for a New York invite? At least get an invite. I mean, he's not in the class with those guys, but an invite. It's fair. The run game's great. The defense has been, unreal. Still, it is November 8th, 2024. They play tomorrow, November 9th. They have not given up 20 points this season. Haven't done it. Not even against Alabama. Not against anybody. Vols have not given up 20 points all season long. Do I think that'll continue against Mississippi State? But of course, I think it's going to continue against the, I'll call them the baby Bulldogs, because Tennessee plays the big Bulldogs next week in Georgia, in Athens. But can you build a level of consistency in the deep pass game, in the sense that the issue the last 3 weeks prior to last week against Kentucky, when at least one of these got corrected, one of these being, Nico's just overthrowing wide open receivers. That was a problem against Arkansas, Florida, and Bama. But also the problem was, when he is accurately throwing guys balls, they're dropping them. I saw maybe one play against Kentucky, like, Nico, missed that one. Yeah, you got it. It was mostly drops other than that. So if Tennessee, is going to be a matter of execution offense, being able to put something on tape for Georgia and Kirby Smart next week, and what could be a season-defining game, certainly as it relates to going to Atlanta for the SEC title game. Put yourself in the catbird seat to do that. Could you put something on tape for Kirby Smart to where he has to say, okay, their run game and short pass game is not the only way they can beat us. We have to respect them over the top. That's going to be key for Tennessee. And I have to imagine that Josh Heupel, the head coach of the Vols, is going to put together a game plan somewhat that resembles that. Now, maybe Heupel's going to say, hey, I'm going to hold back my best plays, as any smart coach would, for Georgia. I'm going to hold back the creative concepts for Georgia, like a team that Tennessee has not beaten since 2016. But I want to see a level of consistency from the deep passing game. I know what I'm getting from the defense. The best defense in college football, led by the one and the only James Pierce and Jermon McCoy as well. And Tim Banks doing an amazing job coaching that defense. Give him a blank check to stay in Tennessee, guys. But I need to see it from Nico, which in large part I kind of did against Kentucky. I was very impressed by Nico. No turnovers, very efficient. I need to see guys hauling these passes. So, shorter edition on the Ball View, but did want to discuss that. Tennessee's going to win this game against Mississippi State by a final score of 49-13. 49-13, Vols win. put themselves in a position to continue to move up the ranks in the college football playoff rankings, depending on what happens ahead of them. If there's any crazy upsets, you never know. It's college football. It's what makes the sport great. And they'll be put in prime position to potentially go after the SEC crown, or at least get a spot in the SEC title game for the first time since 2007 by beating Georgia next week. And everybody in Knoxville and all Vols fans around America cannot wait for that one. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View.
You're darn right. It's football time in Tennessee.
Football time in Tennessee.
Also, too, I did want to say this while we're on the topic of college football, then we'll move on to NFL predictions. Did want to send my thoughts and prayers to Kirk Herbstreit and his family. They lost their dog, Ben, yesterday. And Kirk Herbstreit, major shout out to him for somehow finding a way to be able to call the game on Amazon with Al Michaels last night in what was a fantastic finish, obviously, between Baltimore and Cincinnati. Ben Herbstreit he was a golden retriever. He passed away at the age of 10, and he had dealt with some cancer. Herbstreit had talked about, and he was as big a fixture as to College Game Day and just the overall college football big game experience, because Kirk Herbstreit, along with Chris Fowler and sometimes Reese Davis on ESPN, calls all the big games, the biggest game in large part every weekend. Ben was kind of like the mascot for big college football games in some way. And we know that he and Kirk's family are obviously, as the case with just about any dog or any pet of that sort. We're very close with Ben. So as someone who is a proud, proud cat owner myself, I love my little guy, Neeland. He is, I mean, we all know that story of that furry friend in our lives that just brightens up our day if things are going wrong, or you just the love that they bring to your families, bring to your lives. And so I could definitely empathize with anybody who's lost a pet recently or in general, and certainly Kirk Herbstreit, one of those people. So thoughts and prayers to Kirk, to his family, and we will certainly never forget. We'll never forget Ben. He was a bundle of joy for college football. There's no question about it. And so yeah, thoughts and prayers go to that family. I just didn't want to say that because it's an important thing to bring up. All right, NFL. We got some big time games on schedule. In large part, a massive matchup that we'll talk about in just a second. Actually, a few minutes or so, I guess, based on what we got in front of us, between my Steelers and the Washington Commanders. Big game in our nation's capital. So let's get to it. NFL predictions. Here we go. Let me turn that out a little bit. We will start in Germany. Munich, Germany, between two really bad teams. Two teams with a combined record of 4-14. You got the New York Football Giants and you got the Carolina Panthers. Both teams coming off pretty good performances. The Giants pushing Washington, to the brink, and then after pushing my Steelers to the brink as well in Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, Carolina won a game on Sunday. Ended up getting Dennis Allen fired as the coach of the New Orleans Saints. They go down to 2-7. Listen, I'm gonna say this real quick. People get mad at these overseas games. Listen, Brazil was a mess. The field playing surface was disastrous. Germany is the best. Those fans in Germany and Munich, when they sing Sweet Caroline, obviously as a Red Sox fan, a song very near and dear to my heart. Or they sing Take Me Home Country Roads by John Denver. Like, it's a great environment in Germany. Never been there in that stadium, but it seems on television like those guys and gals are having a blast. So, I wish they were getting better teams. But listen, for all of the flaws of the New York Giants, if there's one thing that team does about as well as, honestly, any team in the NFL, boy, they can get to the quarterback. Giants top 5 in sacks this season as a collective. Dexter Lawrence is a freaking monster. They've got so many great edge rushers across the board. Kudos to Bryce Young. Kudos to the Panthers for winning a game. I think it's going to be a long day for my man Bryce. Giving the Giants in this game relatively comfortably. 24-13. The over-under for this game is 40.5. I'm going to take the under on that one. Giants 24, Panthers 13, and the Giants do cover the spread of -6.5. It is now time, early on, for Bryce's Bleak Bet. It's the one game every week that I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. Here's what I'm looking at, folks. And y'all going to think I'm crazy on this, on why this is Bryce's Bleak Bet. But I'm looking at the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. What do I do with this one? So on one hand, you have Atlanta, 6-3, playing great offensive football. But a questionable pass rush. One that does not get to the quarterback very consistently at all. And for all of the offensive problems with the Dallas Cowboys. And with all the issues, Dak Prescott going down early in the late third quarter in that game, misses the entire fourth quarter. Cooper Rush has to come in and do what he's got to do. Atlanta looked kind of vulnerable on defense to a bad Dallas offense in terms of skill position group and a backup quarterback in Rush. You're like, Bryson, yeah, the Saints are world beaters. They're not world beaters, but they're a team that just got an interim head coach. And what do we know about those? Well, interim head coaches, and they can fool front offices by doing this. It's like the substitute teacher effect, right? You ever been to school and your teacher is, Mrs. Day, and the substitute teacher comes in, and there's like they're not here to lay down the law or doing like that. Like they're here to hold students to a high standard, all those different things, but it's more laid back. You loosen up a little bit, maybe even perform better in class as a result. That's interim head coaches in the NFL. Saints have a new one. I think they can give Atlanta problems. I'm going to hesitate. I think there's a shot the Saints at home win this game. But I'm going to take the Falcons hesitantly 27-24. But give me New Orleans and the points. Listen, the against the spread, interim head coaches are well above 500 in the last decade or so. I'll take New Orleans in the points plus 3.5. Atlanta to win outright. That's Bryce's Bleak Bet. I'm not crazy about it. It's a divisional matchup. The Saints lost a game they weren't supposed to. Like, it's a lot of different things going on. So, and by the way, they just traded Marshawn Lattimore, so that's a reason that I go in the Falcons' direction. But still, Saints do cover. All right, it's now time for my upset of the week. Y'all know where I'm going. Give me my Pittsburgh Steelers over the Washington Commanders by a final score, by a field goal. 26-23. Steelers beat Washington. The Red Hot Commanders. Both these teams are red hot as of late. Steelers plus 2.5 and to win this game outright. And here is why. So, Washington no doubt got better at the trade deadline. They just added one of the top corners in the NFL, Marshawn Lattimore, and they desperately needed him to a pass defense that has consistently gotten gashed. Played better the last few weeks, but in general, prior to the bye, was not playing good football. And again, the last few weeks, who's the quarterbacks they played? Bryce Young, the next week, Caleb Williams, who didn't play that well. I love Caleb, but he didn't play that well in that game. That was more of a Caleb and Chicago play calling issue than a Washington issue. And then the next week, they play Daniel Jones, who's been fine this year, but he's still Daniel Jones. Now you play Mr. Unlimited. Never thought I'd be saying those words about Russell Wilson coming into the season, but that's where we're at. Here's the thing with Pittsburgh, and here's the thing with my Steelers. They've got the best defensive line in the National Football League. They've got the best defensive player in the National Football League in T.J. Watt. They've got a Mike Tomlin who, in his career, eats rookie quarterbacks for lunch. I think the record, if it's accurate, is something like 5-27 are rookie quarterbacks against Mike Tomlin in his career. Now, Jane Daniels, no ordinary rookie quarterback. He's having a fantastic year. Looks to be the offensive rookie of the year if he continues to do what he's going to do. But it's so similar to Pittsburgh against Atlanta in week 1 when everybody thought the Falcons were going to beat the Steelers in week 1, and I didn't. I said, folks, Atlanta has certainly at the time, Kirk Cousins is better than Justin Fields, and I like their coaching staff and all these different things, their weapons. But there's an institutional stability with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not that there is a stability in Washington. Matter of fact, there's more stability with the Commanders in the Washington franchise than there's been in a long time. Maybe in the entire 21st century, now that you got new ownership, good coaches, Cliff Kingsbury OC, Dan Quinn OC, and have drafted well, yes. but they haven't established that culture quite yet. They're on their way to, but they're not there quite yet. Mike Tomlin had that culture instituted his whole career in Pittsburgh. So Russell Wilson against a Washington defense that even with Marshawn Lattimore, I still have questions about. And George Pickens, Mike Williams, let's see what he does. I'm skeptical. Najee Harris been run like a man on a mission, and it's Mike Tomlin. Folks, if a great coach is coming off a bye and he's an underdog, take the great coach, take the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5 and win this thing outright in my upset of the week, 26-23 over the Washington Commanders. Can I say this too? Commanders are tempting fate right now. You know the curse of the terrible towel? Remember what the Jacksonville Jaguars did when they went to Pittsburgh? And some of the players for the Jags took some of those terrible towels and were doing some inappropriate things with them, and it was like, okay, you're tempting the quote-unquote football gods. And as it turns out, the Jags have been one of the worst teams in football since that very moment. You don't disrespect the terrible towels. Washington is going to have their own sense, openly mocking the terrible towels in Maryland on Sunday. Bad news, Washington. Give me the Steelers. Curse the terrible towel continues. Washington better be careful. This could wreck their season potentially. Steelers win 26-23 over the Washington Commanders. Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, AFC West matchup. Kansas City, the defending champs back-to-back. They're an 8-point favorite at home. I went back and forth on this one as it relates to the line. Listen, obviously, I'm taking the Chiefs. What do we get? They haven't lost this Christmas. Everyone gets mad at the Chiefs. They don't win the way you want them to. I don't know. They do what a team sport is supposed to do, and that's win. They don't lose. They just don't. Mahomes played his best game this season against the Buccaneers. He was basically perfect on third down. Chiefs scored 30. Mahomes was unreal. Kelsey was great. Hopkins was great. Chiefs defense had a bad day at the office by their standards against a beat-up Bucs offense, and Baker Mayfield doing what he does, and that's just being a flat-out gamer. But if I've learned one thing about the Kansas City Chiefs over the years as a championship dynasty, just like my Warriors were and continue to be, as the Patriots were, as the 90s Bulls used to be, it's that if they just, it's so cliche, but it's just true. They find a way to get the job done when things aren't going their way. Chiefs had their worst defensive game of the year. Mahomes like, I got you. I'll take you to the finish line. I'll do what I got to do to get us to another W and to start 8-0. Denver's coming off an embarrassing loss on the road to a great Baltimore Ravens offensive team. Great coaches, always say this, great coaches off humiliating losses, probably a smart bet to take them, maybe not to take them to win outright, maybe not taking them the money line, but against against the spread, or and the points if they're underdogs next week, which they usually are. I'm going to take Sean Payton, the Broncos, and the points. I'll take him +8, but I'll still take the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game outright, 24-17. Denver, by and large, is a pretty good defense. Now, if Kansas City, if the game against Tampa Bay was a matter of, hey, defense ain't playing well, Mahomes like, okay, I'll carry us on my back. D-Hop, Kelsey, you do your thing. Kareem Hunt will get the job done at the very end in overtime. Sure. But if the defense gets back to what they were and the offense continues to do what they're doing, yeah, they're the best team in the league by a healthy margin. And I love Detroit, but that's just the reality of it. Moving on. Whew, I'm smelling Blowout City in this one. And it is why I say this is my first game for
Bettin Man.
I'm a Bettin Man. Trying to get back on track for this segment of this season. I'm trying to buy my first 3-0 week, and it's going to start here in Duval County. You got the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Vikings on the road are 7-point favorites, and I love me some Minnesota in this game. Here's why. You know who the quarterback is for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Do you know who that individual happens to be? Mac Jones. Anybody who's watched Carving Up for any extended period of time, and if you haven't, I'll fill you in. I have been a Mac Jones critic since Alabama. When they said Mac Jones was this top 3 potential pick in the 2021 draft, I'm like, y'all out your minds with that one. Let's see, he has a noodle arm, can't move, has questionable leadership skills, and he only won an Natty at Bama because his wide receiver, Devontae Smith, was the Heisman Trophy winner. And he had Nick Saban and an amazing defense, amazing offensive line. Mac Jones was great as last year Alabama system quarterback to a T. No doubt about it. And a clear backup. Well, Trevor Lawrence, unfortunately, despite playing exceptional football in the last month, he's out. He's dealing with some injuries. Doug Peterson announced today and over the last few days, he's probably not going to play in this game against the Vikings. Mac Jones against a Brian Flores coach defense. If the Vikings were favored by 20, I take a hard look at it. Vikings win comfortably, 34-14 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, Jacksonville season's a wrap. There's no doubt about that. It's by and large not really Trevor's fault. It's the defenses, which has been utterly atrocious. And Doug Peterson has not been good at all situationally this season. Minnesota 34, Jacksonville 14. Mac Jones in Jacksonville against that defense? Yeah, no. Let's move on to our next matchup, which also happens to be my favorite segment every week. And again, aiming for my first 3-0 week of the season, it is once again time for
Bettin Man.
You're a Bettin Man. My eyes shift. We're staying in the state of Florida, going to Tampa. San Francisco 49ers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Niners on the road are 6.5-point favorites, and I love me some San Francisco in this matchup, and here's why. Tampa Bay doesn't have their top 2 receivers. Yes, kudos to them. They competed with the Kansas City Chiefs, took them down the wire, should have went for 2 in the last seconds. They should have done that. All of that being said, though, they're on a short week with a beat-up receiving core, beat-up team they just played on Monday. And they're facing a San Francisco 49ers team. Kyle Shanahan's off a bye. What'd I say? Coaches, great coaches, top 5, especially like I talked about with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers earlier. Top 5 coaches off a bye, safe bets in Vegas the following week coming off of that bye. But not only is Kyle Shanahan coming off of a bye, you know who's coming back? The reigning Offensive Player of the Year, one Christian McCaffrey, and I don't know if you've heard, he's really good. This is Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that cannot stop the run. That is bad news. It's bad news against anybody. Against Christian McCaffrey, this could be potentially a long day at the office. I think Tampa Bay will have their moments. Baker will, again, Baker's a gamer. Baker's going to keep you in games. Like, we get that, but at the same time, the talent gap is large. Give me the 49ers in this spot. Deebo Samuel, by the way, needed the bye as much as anybody. Like, needed to get away from pneumonia, lose a little bit of baggage there. Give me the 49ers in this game, 34-23 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If I were a bet man, San Francisco with McCaffrey back and Kyle Shanahan out the bye, they will torch that Tampa Bay Bucs defense. Brock Purdy will do his thing, George Kittle, but McCaffrey will be the star of the show, 34-23. The Niners will beat the Buccaneers. Moving on, Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts. Bills are favored -4 in this spot. So, look, Indianapolis, I still defend their decision to start Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson. People are saying, well, you got to give Richardson some snaps. He can't throw. Like, I'm going to be frank. He has a beautiful deep ball. That's it. He can't hit the intermediate routes. He's not a good decision maker with the ball in his hands. Joe Flacco's Joe Flacco. He's steady. He's a good backup. That's about it. I think this Bills defense is unbelievable. I think, by the way, I like Indianapolis' weapons, so maybe they give him problems. Maybe Joe Flacco gets on an old man heater. Who knows? But Josh Allen has quietly been playing as good of quarterback as anybody in the world this year. He's cut down the turnovers. The Bills, I've said all throughout the offseason, when people are like, Buffalo, I'm like, this might actually be their best chance to beat Kansas City. And I think Kansas City's great. They're the best team in the league, but Buffalo constructed their roster like a championship team. Their defense is better. They got rid of some of the older guys on that side of the ball. They've added to their running. They've got a good running game. The play calling with Joe Brady. They've got a receiving core. They added Amari Cooper. I like Buffalo in the spot. Give me the Bills, 31-17, pretty comfortably. So definitely Bills -4, 31-17 over the Indianapolis Colts, and the Bills will continue to do their thing and continue to reign supreme. I got a chance to win the AFC East by like Thanksgiving. So Buffalo's going to continue to dominate. One bad team and one team. New England Patriots, Chicago Bears from the Windy City. The Bears are a 6-point favorite. It's a fun matchup in the sense you got the first overall pick in the draft, a quarterback, Caleb Williams, and you got the third overall pick in the draft in Drake May, who's a quarterback as well. I think Chicago has lost. I'm sorry. I think the Bears locker room has lost respect for Matt Eberflus. There's a disconnect there. Yeah, we saw the tweets from Caleb Williams' dad, and I don't think that's as indicative of what we're seeing as Caleb and other Bears players after games referencing to it didn't execute well, maybe weren't quite as prepared, all these different things. That's coaching. Like, Eberflus has lost the locker room completely. On the other side with the Patriots, listen, they seem to be playing pretty hard for Jerome Mayo and for Drake May, who's playing, all things considered, with how bad that roster is, pretty well. Drake May had the turnovers against the Titans. Yeah, that's going to come with Drake May in a rookie season with no talent around him. We get that. But he's the reason that game even went to overtime with a touchdown run as time expired. So I actually like Let me pull this up here. I actually kind of like the Patriots and the points in the spot. I'm going to take the Bears 20-16. Just they're a significantly more talented football team than New England. I think Caleb Williams kind of needs a get-right game. So kind of an ugly Chicago Bears-esque game that we've become used to over the years. Bears win 20-16 over the Patriots, but 6 points is too much for a team that is just not playing good offensive football and a team that I think has moved on psychologically from its head coach. Bears win. If they were playing most anybody else, I'd probably pick the other team, but the Patriots just aren't talented. The team the Patriots lost to is going to Los Angeles in the first game of our afternoon slate of games. The Titans, who beat New England, and the Los Angeles Chargers. LA is a 7.5-point favorite. So, the thing with the LA Chargers is we thought coming into the year that the wide receiving core was going to be a little bit of an issue. I don't know. The last few weeks it's been pretty good. Quentin Johnston, who I loved out at TCU, then I didn't love his rookie year because he had a problem with drops. He wasn't a crisp route runner. All of a sudden, Quentin Johnston is playing really good football. They've got Ladd McConkey. They've got a great running game with a great quarterback in Justin Herbert. The defense has been playing exceptional football, albeit against whoever the Saints tossed out there at quarterback and Jameis Winston last week. But the Chargers win the games they're supposed to. This is my preseason pick to shock everybody, go to the AFC title game and play Kansas City. I still think this is very much on the board for this team. I'm sticking to that pick. As for Tennessee, look, is it Mason Rudolph? Is it Will Levis? It's sounding like, according to reports, that it's going to be Levis. We're probably going to get a meme of Will Levis doing something really, really stupid. Give me the Chargers in this game. 27-12 over the Tennessee Titans. Chargers minus 7.5. They do win this game comfortably against Tennessee. I like what the Chargers are doing right now since that loss to Arizona. Yeah, they're taking care of business. They're winning games they're supposed to. This is one of those games. I think they'll continue to do that. LA 27, Tennessee Titans 12, and take the Chargers minus 7.5. It is now time for my favorite segment of the week. Once again, it is called
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bettin Man. I'm taking a good hard look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Philadelphia on the road, 7.5-point favorite. If you notice a trend with If I Were a Bettin Man, I'm taking big road favorites because I love the Eagles in the spot. I don't think it's that hard to wrap your brain around. Listen, both coaches are... One, Coach McCarthy, that's all I got on Mike. And for Nick Sirianni, I think Nick Sirianni is going to be the guy that holds this very talented Eagles team back from achieving bigger and better things moving forward. But on this Sunday, yeah, it's in Dallas. They haven't won in Dallas yet. They're over in Dallas. Got waxed by the Saints. Yikes. We're getting waxed by Baltimore. Dak brought it back in the game. Baltimore outplayed them throughout the majority of that one. And then they got utterly humiliated by a team that's going to win the NFC, the Detroit Lions. It's a divisional game. I get it. And I was actually considering, had Dak been healthy, had he not pulled the hamstring, even with an Atlanta loss, I was strongly considering taking the Cowboys because Dak in his career has been amazing against Philadelphia. Cooper Rush, not so much. Cooper Rush has had one start in his career against the Eagles. He had multiple turnovers, and the Cowboys scored 17 points. I know that there's this really strange, unfounded on facts theory out there that somehow, some way, Cooper Rush is, you can feel about Dak the way you want to feel about Dak, but the idea that Cooper Rush, who's been a backup all 8 years of his career, is somehow in the same galaxy as Dak Prescott, well, he won 4 in a row. Yeah, when the defense was giving up 13 points a game, I'd hope you could win those games. And Cooper Rush's stat line was, I think he had a pass rating like the 80s for his 5 starts in 2022. In Dallas. He's a good backup. You want Cooper to come in, and if Dak's out for a few weeks, which it looks like Dak could be gone for the season, to come in and win you games, sure. Philly's defense, I ripped them coming into the season. Folks, they've been playing better. They've been pretty good. Trevor Lawrence almost got them back in the game. The Jaguars back in the game against Philly, but by and large, they played significantly better than last year. If I were a bet man, hammer the Eagles minus 7.5. It's a lot. I get it. I understand. Dallas's saving grace was 4 and 88. 88 speed up, 4's gone. Eagles minus 7.5, 34-19 over the Cowboys. I can see Dallas score like a late touchdown to make it sort of respectable. Philly's going to... Saquon Barkley against that Cowboys rush defense. Sweet mother of all is good. That man could have a day. All right. New York Jets, Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are a 1.5 dog at 5-4 to the 3-6 Jets. So I know Jets fans think I hate their team. I don't hate their team. I just hate the way their teams run. And I hate the fact that their team was portrayed as not only in some ways a team that could somehow eke out Buffalo, the better run franchise with the way better quarterback and organizational structure for the division, but a team that could maybe win the AFC and who knows, the Super Bowl. There are folks out there that had that take that this is an actual contender, and they were sellers at the deadline. They traded Mike Williams. Do that with what you would do with that what you will. Here's what I know. Arizona's been playing outstanding defense the last few weeks this year. I also know this. Marvin Harrison Jr. has gotten more involved with the Arizona Cardinals offense. What do I also know? In a division in the NFC West that is as tightly contested, I think the most tightly contested division as anybody, Cardinals are on top of it. Cardinals are playing good football. Kyler Murray's doing his thing, spreading all over the field. The Cardinals are running the ball on any and everybody, and they'll punch you in the mouth. If you know one thing about the Jets, get them down, you got him. Texans game was an aberration. CJ Stroud has not, we're about to get into the Texans game on Sunday Night Football in just a second. CJ Stroud has been playing objectively mediocre football the last 3 to 4 games, 3 games in particular. And Aaron Rodgers was pretty darn awesome in the second half of that game. Kudos to him. Is that sustainable for a 40-year-old quarterback off an Achilles surgery who hasn't been good in 3 years, hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 3 years? And no. Give me the Cardinals in this game. I feel great about this. 29-20 over the New York Jets. Cardinals plus 1.5 and the money line. Arizona wins 29-20. I don't understand their dogs. I must be missing something. I must be watching a different Jets team than the rest of the betting America is. Cool, they beat the Texans. Okay, the Bucks beat the Buccaneers beat the Lions. Are they better? No. What are we doing? Final game. Got the Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans from Houston, Texas. Host of the Houston Texans. Lions on the road are a 4-point favorite. Now, I got to admit, I went back and forth in this game once we got some really interesting news around noon Eastern today. Nico Collins is back in the lineup. Nico Collins is at practice, ready to go. And we know, when Nico went down, this Texans offense went to hell. They couldn't establish a consistent pass game. CJ Stroud the offensive line was getting rolled on a week-to-week basis, especially against the Jets last week in their loss. Stephon Diggs down the year, like they needed this guy, you could argue, is the anchor to their offense. So listen, I think it's at home. Houston wants to try and continue to create separation with the Indianapolis Colts and what is a very weak division that they're going to win. Still, you want to create that separation. Even if Indianapolis were to beat Buffalo, it'd be a game back. So listen, for Detroit, I think this is the best team in the NFC, the second best team in football, and I've been saying that since week 1. I think there's no question about it. Goff is playing amazing. The defense has, oddly, without Aiden Hutchinson, been playing exceptional football, particularly against a loaded Green Bay Packers offense last week. We get all those things. I think Detroit's going to establish the run. Jared Goff is going to have to be good against pressure, and that is something he struggled against. I'm going to take the Texans +4, Detroit to an outright, because, listen, they keep winning. Dan Campbell has his guys ready to play each and every week, and we know Ben Johnson's going to have some creative concepts in order for the Lions to be put in position to be successful. Texans in the points +4. 4 is too much for a Lions team. I love Detroit, love what they do, and I think they're going to win this game 28-26. At the end of the day, Houston needs a win here. Houston needs a win against not only a good team, but I think a phenomenal team in Detroit. So give me Detroit 28-26, Texans +4. So there you go. All right. Listen, this was an interesting show. Talked about the election for a half hour to start. Again, there's got to be as irritated as mild, as upset as I am that Trump's back in the White House, as disastrous as I think his first term was, as unfit for office as history would show that he is. American people wanted him. We have to respect their decision. This is something, hopefully we can use this as a way to move past the conspiracy theories and the objective lies about the 2020 election. Hopefully we can do that. The idea is rigged, but now it's not. And it also wasn't in 2016. Okay. Doesn't seem terribly believable if you're going to be consistent on one and not be consistent on either of those counts. But American people spoken. Trump's going to be the president, 47th in our history. And Democrats got to look themselves in the mirror, figure out where they went wrong. I detailed in the first 30 minutes of the show. I'll upload it to YouTube. Probably have that thing ready on YouTube tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. If you don't want to wait for that, you can just check out the early part of the show. And so, yeah, did that. Talked about the game last night, college football, NFL. Listen, it's It's going to be a crazy 4 years. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be a crazy 4 years. But we're still a great country. Regardless who the president is, we're still a great country. We have great ideals that other nations aspire to be, or aspire to replicate. But we've also got a long way to go in certain areas. And so let's always keep that optimistic mindset and a realistic, optimistic mindset toward the future, and one where we take accountability for where we go wrong. It's that simple. Because if you find a way to lose to a guy like Donald Trump, you did something really wrong, and the Democrats, as I laid out earlier, did. So check out the video tomorrow. I'm hoping to get it up there maybe tomorrow morning. And if you don't want to wait till then, just check out the early stages of today's show. But other than that, that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Except for your sleeping cat. I love Nealon. I just, that's all I can say, man. I love that furry little fart head. He's the he's the best. But seriously, though, please tell everybody you know about Carving Up Live to subscribe to it. Please tell everybody you know about the show. It means everything to me and everybody who's associated with Carving Up Live. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as the Carving, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown, who commented, check out his articles on the Grid's website. Check out all of our other content creators. Shout out to those guys. But we'll be back live and ready to go with a ton to talk about, a lot of NFL. If the Warriors keep rolling, some NBA. I mean, we got Cleveland tonight, OKC on Sunday, Clay's return Tuesday. Captain Clay. The Warriors fans are going to be wearing captain hats, which I think is kind of awesome to pay tribute to one of Klay Thompson. Big week for the Warriors. We're going to be talking about that, but then a ton of NFL, maybe some college football. It's a beautiful time to be a sports fan. So get to that. Talk about more on Monday. We'll see you then. Stay safe out there. Please, everybody, be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This issue impacts every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis. And listen, we just had an election and we're still in the process of seeing what's going to happen with the House. And there's local elections everywhere. We've got new leadership coming in. We've got incumbent leadership staying. Please tell everybody you know, or please make it clear to every lawmaker you know that you want safe streets in the United States of America, free from gun violence, because we've got, folks, it's an epidemic. It's a cancer in this nation that we've got to solve. So if we can't unite on anything, most Americans agree this is a huge issue we got to address. Let's do what we got to do to address it and save the people in this beautiful country. All right. See y'all on Monday. Great weekend of football ahead. God bless y'all. Peace out. Come through for me again, Mr. Unlimited. You know what to do. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.